Imagine you're 22 years old and you've just lost $89,000 in the markets. Your entire world has collapsed. Most people would walk away, file for bankruptcy, and never look back. But Linda Raschke, she made a different choice, one that would define not just her career, but an entire generation of traders. What you're about to discover is the untold story of how a devastating loss at the beginning of her career became the foundation for managing over $300 million and earning recognition as one of the greatest traders of our time. But more importantly, you'll learn the psychological principles that separated her from the 98% of traders who fail. I've spent years studying the mindset of successful traders, and Linda's story contains lessons that go far beyond technical analysis or market timing. This is about the psychology of peak performance, the power of focus, and what it really takes to survive in the most unforgiving arena in the world. Chapter 1: The Early Disaster. Let's start with that devastating loss. Linda was selling straddles and takeover stocks, a strategy that seemed foolproof until it wasn't. In a matter of days, she was facing bankruptcy. At 22, with no safety net, she had two choices: quit or become what she calls an indentured servant to the business. She chose the latter. For 5 grueling years, every dollar she made went to paying back the clearing firm. While her peers were building their lives, she was rebuilding her account cent by cent, trade by trade. But here's what's fascinating from a psychological perspective. This early catastrophe didn't break her. It forged something essential in her character. As she would later reflect, overcoming adversity in those formative years builds a resilience that becomes invaluable when facing the inevitable storms of trading. This wasn't just about money. It was about proving to herself that she could overcome anything the markets threw at her. And the markets were watching, waiting to test that resolve again and again. Chapter 2: The Psychology of Single-Minded Focus. What separated Linda from the countless traders who burned out wasn't intelligence or education. It was something much rarer: the ability to achieve single-minded focus. She traces this back to her childhood as a pianist, spending 6 hours at a time practicing, developing the mental discipline that would become her greatest weapon. In today's world of social media and constant distractions, this level of focus seems almost impossible. But Linda understood something that most traders miss. The markets don't care about your other priorities. They demand complete attention. She describes trading as playing against the best and brightest minds in the world, with better execution and less friction. It's not a zero-sum game. It's a negative-sum game where the house always takes its cut. In this environment, distraction isn't just costly, it's fatal. Think about your own trading. How often are you pulled away by notifications, social media, or other distractions? Linda's success began with eliminating these energy drains and creating what she calls a flow state, that magical zone where intuition and analysis merge into pure performance. Chapter 3: The Power of Pure Technical Analysis. Here's where Linda's approach becomes truly revolutionary. While others were chasing news, order flow, and fundamental analysis, she was becoming what she calls a pure technician. Her philosophy was simple but profound. You don't need news, you don't need order flow, you don't need all this extra stuff. This wasn't arrogance, it was clarity. She understood that in the modern markets, by the time retail traders hear the news, institutional players have already acted. The only edge available to individual traders lies in reading the language of price action itself. Linda's approach was to focus on relationships, how different data points converge or diverge, how markets move relative to each other, how price behaves around key levels. This is where human intuition, built on years of experience, can still outperform algorithms. She developed the famous turtle soup strategy, a tongue-in-cheek name for fading failed breakouts. When the popular turtle trend following system failed, that failure itself became the signal. It's a perfect example of how contrarian thinking can create opportunity in crowded trades. Chapter 4: The $300 Million Lesson. Fast forward from that $89,000 loss to managing $300 million in her hedge fund. The journey between these 2 points wasn't just about learning to trade, it was about learning to manage herself. One of Linda's most powerful insights was about the danger of watching daily P and L. Early in her career, she made the mistake of becoming impressed with herself after a good run. The result? She didn't reach a new high water mark for 5 months. From that moment on, she never looked at her account balance. Even when managing hundreds of millions, she had others track the numbers while she focused purely on process. This isn't just practical advice, it's profound psychology. The moment you start trading the P&L instead of the setup, you've lost your edge. Her hedge fund was ranked 17th out of 4,500 funds for 5-year performance, but she achieved this by staying emotionally detached from the results. She understood that trading is a probability game, and individual trades are just samples in a larger statistical universe. Chapter 5. The Harsh Mathematics of Trading. Here's a sobering reality that Linda shares. According to a major clearing firm study, less than 10% of trading accounts are profitable at the end of any given year. Not making a living, just profitable by even $1. And of those 10%, only about 2% actually make enough to live on without other income sources. Think about that for a moment. In an industry that attracts some of the brightest minds in the world, 98% fail to achieve their goals. Why? Linda points to cognitive biases that plague every trader. We're all overly optimistic about our abilities. We think we're smarter than the next person. And perhaps most dangerously, we believe we're immune to the psychological traps that catch everyone else. The biggest cognitive bias of all? Believing you don't have any cognitive biases. Linda's brutal honesty about these numbers isn't meant to discourage. It's meant to prepare you for the reality of what you're facing. Chapter 6. The Intuition Paradox. Linda has a complicated relationship with the word intuition. She'll tell you she's terrible at it, that she gets it wrong every time when trying to analyze news or macro events. But then she'll describe making split-second trading decisions based on pattern recognition built over decades. The truth is, what we call intuition in trading is actually compressed experience. After seeing thousands of chart patterns, market behaviors, and price actions, the subconscious mind begins to recognize subtle cues that the conscious mind might miss. She tells a fascinating story about coffee futures, how she recognized a false breakout pattern and immediately knew the market would reverse, even without looking at detailed charts. This wasn't mystical intuition. It was pattern recognition, honed by 40 years of market observation. This is why experience is so valuable in trading. You can't shortcut the process of building this database of market behaviors. Every chart you study, every trade you make, every mistake you analyze becomes part of this intuitive foundation. Chapter 7. The Adaptation Imperative. 20. One of Linda's most important insights is about adaptability. She's witnessed countless games come and go over her 4-decade career. Strategies that worked brilliantly for years suddenly stopped working as markets evolved. The current era of hyperliquidity and momentum trading won't last forever. Linda predicts that someday we might face a decade of flat, sideways markets where momentum strategies completely fail. The traders who survive will be those who can adapt their methods to changing conditions. This requires a different kind of intelligence, not just analytical ability, but the wisdom to recognize when something fundamental has shifted. It's about processing relationships and spotting outliers as they develop, not after they've already moved. Linda believes this is where human traders maintain an edge over algorithms. While AI systems are trained on past data, experienced humans can recognize when something unprecedented is beginning to unfold. It's the difference between extrapolating from history and adapting to change in real time. Chapter 8. The Work Nobody Wants to Do. Here's the uncomfortable truth that Linda doesn't hesitate to share. Most people are simply too lazy to do the work required for trading success. They want shortcuts, quick fixes, and magical indicators that will do the thinking for them. But Linda's routine tells a different story. Even when not trading full size, she spends at least an hour every evening logging numbers and preparing for the next day. Her research never stops. She's constantly developing new projects, testing ideas, and refining her approach. She compares successful trading to any other peak performance activity. Novak Djokovic doesn't just show up and play tennis. He has coaches, nutritionists, and a complete support system. He lives and breathes the game 24/7. Trading at the highest level demands the same commitment. It's not a 40-hour-a-week job. It's an obsession that requires sacrificing other aspects of life for the pursuit of excellence. Most people aren't willing to pay this price, which is why most people fail. Chapter 9, The Simplicity Revolution. Perhaps Linda's most radical insight is about simplicity. While novice traders pile on indicators and complex systems, Linda has spent decades stripping away everything unnecessary. Her models typically have just two variables and one filter. She advocates focusing on one simple pattern for 6 months before adding anything else. Master one approach completely before moving on. This goes against every impulse of the modern trader who wants to learn everything at once. The markets, Linda explains, are essentially about money flows and liquidity. Everything else is noise. Support, resistance, trend, momentum, these basic concepts contain everything you need. The sophistication comes not from complex indicators, but from understanding context and timing. This is perhaps the hardest lesson for ambitious traders to accept. That success comes not from knowing more, but from executing better on what you already know. Conclusion. So, what's the real lesson from Linda Raschke's extraordinary journey? It's not about the specific strategies or the millions she managed. It's about the transformation that occurs when you commit completely to mastering yourself. That young woman who lost $89,000 and could have walked away chose instead to rebuild herself trade by trade. She developed focus in a world of distraction, simplicity in a culture of complexity, and emotional discipline in the most emotional arena imaginable. Linda's story proves that trading success isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most disciplined. It's about showing up every day, doing the work that others won't do, and staying focused on process when everyone else is chasing results. The markets will test your resolve, challenge your beliefs, and expose every weakness in your character. But if you can develop the single-minded focus, emotional discipline, and relentless work ethic that Linda exemplifies, you'll have the foundation for not just trading success, but success in any endeavor that demands peak performance. The choice is yours. Will you join the 98% who give up when the markets get tough? Or will you commit to the path that Linda Raschke carved, one trade, one day, one lesson at a time?